All right, we finna react to Chinatown Divided. Wu Ching versus Joe Boys. You feel me? Now I never heard of these motherfuckers a day in my life, but we finna find out who the fuck these motherfuckers are today. You feel me? And if y'all ain't know, the Asian motherfuckers be getting wild too with that game banging shit. You feel me? If y'all ass don't know, and we finna find out more about it today. Shout out Swamp Stories. You feel me? And we finna get into it.
Welcome back to another episode of Swamp Stories. For this episode, we cover a story that has slipped through the cracks of history. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. You can also follow the Instagram page as well. So let's get into it. In order for this video to make sense, let's head way back into history, around the year 1850. Because that's when Chinese immigrants first began moving to America. During this time, China was mostly undeveloped and agricultural, and because of this, opportunities to make money were very limited, even for the most skilled people in society. Well, during the early 1850s, word got around that there was a major gold rush happening across the Pacific Ocean. So thousands of families pooled their resources together and decided to take the risk of a lifetime. They took ships and traveled a long, difficult journey across the Pacific Ocean. But sadly, once they arrived, almost all of the gold was already gone. So then these families were faced with a tough decision.
I ain't gonna cap. They should have motherfucking known, because if they ass all the way motherfucking out there and motherfuckers telling y'all about the shit, don't y'all think the motherfuckers that's out there gonna get to it before y'all motherfuckers?
They had just spent their last resources to come strike it rich in America, but ultimately that fell short. So, do they stay in an unfamiliar land after not finding what they came here for, or do they return back to the homeland? Well, ultimately, almost all 25,000 decided to stay in California and do whatever jobs they could to survive and assimilate. Many of the men became fishermen and others began working construction, but finding a job was not as easy as it sounds. However, in 1863, that would change as the US announced the construction of the first transcontinental railroad. The plan was to connect San Francisco all the way to Council Bluffs, Iowa, but the government had a major problem. They could barely find anyone to work these jobs. That's because workers had to leave their families for months on end. And on top of this, they would have to go to the middle of nowhere to build tracks all day long. So in order to fill the shortage, the US would somehow get the word out to China. And boom, 300,000 Chinese immigrants.
And that's why they be saying motherfucking the USA be built off of immigration and shit. But motherfuckers don't know that shit though. But one thing you can say, them motherfuckers that's immigrating and shit, appreciate the love and support. The motherfuckers that's immigrating, they gonna work and shit for sure. They is gonna get their bread. They ain't out here. Can I get some change? You feel me? They working.
Immigrants came to California to start working, and by 1880, they made up over 10% of the state's population. They began to build their own neighborhoods in California's biggest cities. San Diego, Los Angeles, Sacramento, San Jose, and San Francisco all had large Chinatowns by 1880. But then came 1882, when the US government introduced one of the strangest legislations in American history. That would be the Exclusion Act. And here's what it did. Only Chinese men could now come to America, and they had to leave their wives and children back home. Now, why they?
What type of gay freaky ass shit is that? Whoa. Cock blocking to the stream. What the fuck? Man, or they just don't want Asian motherfuckers to repopulate. That might be the reason. Let's see what the fuck they finna say.
They enacted this? I don't know. You guys can come up with your own conclusions. I'll just talk about the results. Well,
okay, so he don't know the reason, so we finna talk about it. I think they probably did that shit is because they wanted to, like, you feel me? They didn't want a whole bunch of Asian motherfuckers, like pure Asian motherfuckers. I don't know. Shit.
After this passed, a huge problem followed. In 1890, the Bay Area had 89,000 Chinese men. And do you want to guess how many women? Less than 5,000. And because of the shortage, the men began looking for other options. And I know where you guys think I'm going with this, but no, let me explain. In Louisiana, 57% of Chinese men.
I would honestly, you a freaky motherfucker if you was thinking that. I was thinking they was nailing the white women and shit. You feel me? But it is lots of mixed Asians. That's that's the motherfucking reason why so many mixed Asians and shit, bro. Okay, we learning something new in this bitch. You feel me?
Men got married to African American women. And in California,
that's why so many blazers and mixture. You see, I just learned something new. This information is very helpful. I'm actually finna make a TikTok video on this video. You feel me?
43% married European women. Well, essentially, the act halted the growth of the Chinese American community, and it stayed that way until 1943 when the legislation was finally thrown in the trash. And as soon as this happened, the Chinese population began to grow very quickly, and the majority of them moved to Chinatowns all over California. And that takes us to San Francisco Chinatown, one of the oldest and quietest neighborhoods in the city. But things would begin to change in 1960, and this had nothing to do with Chinatown itself. Let me explain. In 1960, a group of teenagers from Hong Kong moved to San Francisco. They came to escape the chaotic streets of their hometown and expected things to be easy in San Francisco. But they were met with an unexpected surprise. The teenagers began attending Galileo High School, which at the time was one of the roughest schools in the city. It's also famous for O.J. Simpson, but that's besides the point. Anyways, while at Galileo, they began running into trouble with students from the Fillmore and Potrero Hill projects. They recall being made fun of and shoved into lockers on a daily basis. And
that shit crazy. I always, you feel me? I was ready for motherfuckers to try to bully me. I was gonna beat the dog shit out of them. But that shit never happened. And then I realized, I guess that shit just happened back in the day or in the movies. Cause I ain't see nobody get pushed in no lockers or head put in the toilet, none of that shit. Motherfuckers were getting their ass beat though.
First, they decided to play along, hoping that it would smooth out. But after a while, they decided that enough was enough, and they began calling themselves Wah Ching, also known as Dub C. Once they band together and made a statement, no one at school would ever mess with them again. And remember, these guys grew up in a chaotic environment back home, so this did not faze them one bit. But not only did they associate with each other at school, but in the neighborhood as well. And that takes us to the Ping Yuen Projects, Chinatown's 12-story public housing complex. And this is where the Hong Kong teens were living. And what they didn't know is that it came with certain rules. Let me explain. Chinatown was very well organized, especially when it came to the streets. Everything was controlled by the Tongs. And all this means is a gathering place for an association. Chinatown had multiple Tongs, such as Sing Sui and Hop Sing. And this is who ran the neighborhood. Everything had to pass by them. So once the Tongs got word about a new group called Wah Ching forming in Chinatown, they were not happy. But instead of being confrontational, they decided to handle it another way. They would call for a meeting with Wah Ching and offer to protect them in exchange for monthly payments. And at first, Wah Ching completely laughed at the idea. They thought that it was a ridiculous idea and they were better off protecting themselves. Well, they didn't know much about the rules of Chinatown and how everything operates. Elders are always respected first, and no one does anything without the approval of higher-ranking members of the community. And that's how money is handled as well. Much of the money came from under-the-table imports of all kinds of things. And those at the top collected the most money, and the younger guys received whatever was left over. So boom, here's the dilemma. Wah Ching can either join together with the Tongs and get in where they fit in, or they can decline and fend for themselves in Chinatown. And this tough decision would actually split up Wah Ching. The majority of members decided that accepting the Tongs' offer was the safest route.
Man, hell no, fo. You gotta turn up with your members, fo. But they like, nigga, I ain't trying to lose my life, bro. These niggas run the city. We don't run shit. That's what they probably thinking. But shit, you gotta be a real nigga at the end of the day.
That would be except for two brothers. Let me introduce you to Joe Fong and Glenn Fong. And these two were the most fearless people in Chinatown. They would decide to break away from Wah Ching after their decision to join the Tongs. And that's when they would create their own group called the Joe Boys. And their motto was to do everything their own way and abide by no rules. And on top of this, their plan was to recruit as many people as possible. And Joe Fong became...
You see, and that's the type of shit I'd be on if I was a gang, if I was in a gang. Like, bro, I don't want to be a part of nobody else shit, boy, and listen to someone else. Nigga, I want to be the nigga that run the shit. Fuck is you talking about? Hell no, I ain't doing that shit. I gotta run the shit if I'm gonna do that shit. I'm not throwing my life away for nobody else except for what I believe
The Chinese Nick Saban. He went to Oakland, San Leandro, and Hayward to recruit. So the Joe Boys began roaming around Chinatown with their chests out doing whatever they want. And this is when things got serious. So Wah Ching and the Tongs decided to send a message. March 1st, 1970, 11 in the morning. It's a regular day in Chinatown, and Glenn Fong steps outside of his apartment. Bang.
Damn.
Although they were trying to humble Joe Fong with this message, they actually made a crazy man even crazier.
I mean, shit, they killed his brother. You thought that, bro? It's. I mean, that could go two ways. A nigga could be scared as hell, like, oh shit, they pop my brother, I might be next. Or a nigga gonna turn up. You just took his other half. His other half, folks. What are you talking about? It's a war now. You thought it was, man, you thought it was bad. Now it's really gonna be bad.
Joe Fong now has a grudge for the rest of his life, so he would kick off the worst year in Chinatown history. In fact, in 1970, San Francisco had a homicide rate of 28.5 per 100,000, which was actually top 5 in the country, and most of this was related to the Joe Boys versus the rest of Chinatown. However, the Tongs would keep sending messages, and they would do it in a traditional manner. 2 men and 1 rope. That's all. No bams, just a rope. On November 5th, 1970, they would find a Joe Boy named George Yun in the Presidio. Then, 2 weeks later on November 19th, they would find another Joe Boy named Alan Hom. And the craziest thing about it is that for both of them, they used the same rope. And this trend would continue to the point where Chinatown became the most dangerous place to go. And because of this, one of the Joe Boys would decide to do something very brave. The man's name is Raymond Leung, and he pulled Joe Fong to the side to tell him to calm down before things get much worse. He was scared for his own sake and for the rivals as well. All of this was destructive and a big waste of time, but this brave suggestion would not work out well for him. The next day, he was discovered in Chinatown.
Damn.
And as soon as you'd think that things can't possibly get worse, everything would peak in 1970.
Shit, but he just tried to tell him this shit not worth it. But motherfucking, he lost his brother, so it's worth it to him 100%. That's why I say, motherfucker, you better make your own shit, nigga. Because if you join someone else shit, you sliding for someone else's cause. You feel me? But them tongues is most definitely sliding like a motherfucker, though. I ain't gonna cap to you. They is not fucking around, and they using ropes.
And that takes us to July 4th, 1977. This is the most profitable time of the year in Chinatown because fireworks are a huge seasonal business. Now remember that the Pingyuan projects are controlled by Wah Ching and Sing Sui, but for some reason, a Joe Boy named Felix Huey, also known as Tiger, was selling fireworks in front of Pingyuan, and Wah Ching was not happy about this. Later that night, they would approach him, and bang!
Damn, he got killed. They killed him for motherfucking selling fireworks? Oh, shit is real. Shit is real. Motherfuckers don't even know. Shit is real.
This incident here would set off one of the most famous events in California history. So let me break it down. Joe Fong would hire a man named Carlos John to spy on Wah Ching for months on end. He would follow them around for months until he got the information he needed. One day, while he was spying on them in a cafe, he overheard them discussing a gathering on Labor Day at the Golden Dragon restaurant. And once they got this information, the Joe Boys would begin planning one of the craziest and worst ideas known to mankind. And that takes us to September 4th, 1977. The Joe Boys meet up in nearby Daly City and decide to drive together to the Golden Dragon restaurant. It's 5 of them in a car together, all bammed up and angry as can be. So they get out of the car and walk in the restaurant. Bang!
Ryu, this is crazy.
Damn. Damn, they unalive everybody. Damn.
This made
So everybody they smoked didn't have shit to do with the Wu-Tangs. They hired a bogus ass motherfucking spy. What the fuck spy did they hire? His ass sent they ass clean the fuck off. I ain't gonna cap to you.
National headlines all over the country. And the saddest part is that everyone who didn't make it had nothing to do with Wah Ching. This incident was so big that it caused Chinatown to shut down for a long time. Tourists were now scared to visit and locals were scared to go outside. So the entire community came together and decided that something needed to change. So SFPD would start something called the Task Unit, dedicated to stopping Wah Ching and the Joe Boys. But it would take a few months before they figured out what really happened. March 24th, 1978. 5 people would go down for it, all of which were 17-year-old students at Galileo High School. Curtis Tam got 23 years but ended up getting out in 1991 at the young age of 30 years old. Melvin Yu got life but was released in 2015. Peter Ng got life but was released in 2018. And Tom Yu got life as well but was released in 2014. So that means that everyone involved is currently out and about. But thankfully, after this, everything would calm down. By 1983, Chinatown was back to being one of the safest neighborhoods in the city. The Wah Ching versus Joe Boys rivalry benefited no one, and we can honestly say that they learned from it and moved on. That would be for everyone except one man, who was actually at the Golden Dragon on September 4th. Let me introduce you to Raymond Chow, also known as Shrimp Boy. And this guy was possibly just as wild as Joe Fong, except that he moved completely differently. Raymond Chow was high ranked in the Hop Sing Tong. And another difference between him and
Damn, so it was a tong there that day. That shit crazy. So they smoked everybody but the motherfucking tong that was actually there. Them niggas felt the mission 100%. That shit crazy.
Joe Fong is that he's a team player, and that would be determined in 1989. That's when a powerful man named Peter Chong contacted him. Chong was the head of Wo Hop To Triad, possibly the biggest Hong Kong-based organization of all time. And at the time, Wo Hop To wanted to expand to the Bay Area, and they had heard good things about Shrimp Boy, so he was chosen to become their West Coast leader. He gladly accepted the powerful role and began expanding quickly. He was making huge money, like unreal amounts that you would never imagine. And on top of this, he was extremely charismatic. Despite having served 2 sentences from 1980 to 1985 and again from 1986 to 1989, he somehow was not regarded as such. In fact, he was often seen hanging out with Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, and other politicians. And mind you, this is after serving time for all kinds of crazy things.
Damn, so folks ass got connected. He in this bitch. He locked in. When niggas say they got real, they really run shit, that you gotta be like Shrimp Boy.
And during all this, he was getting richer and richer in the streets. Despite the absurd amount of money he was making and shots he was calling, he remained under the radar for 25 years. And this may have been due to Chinatown's quiet state after the 1970s. They were no longer the focus of investigation, and Shrimp Boy took full advantage of that. He was seen as the poster child for reformed felons. He gave speeches to the youth, attended government board meetings, and was even featured in commercials. But everything would come from
he was finessing it. He played that role like he was really, you feel me, a changed man. And that's why motherfuckers ain't motherfucking get on his ass and lock his ass up, because they like, damn, he just a changed man. In reality, folks' ass is out here still doing the same shit on a bigger scale.
Falling down in 2014. And that introduces us to a new character, a man by the name of Leland Yee. He was a California state senator, known mostly for his harsh stances against video games. Yes, he wanted to ban games like GTA and Call of Duty because he thought they made children crazy.
Senator Leland Yee told the SF Chronicle, "Gamers have just got to quiet down."
Leland Lee is a fucking goofy. If that's the case, then ban movies, TV shows, and all the above, you feel me? Because that's what you will have to do. And that still ain't going to stop the violence, because some motherfuckers are just programmed to be a crazy motherfucker.
Gamers have no credibility in this argument.
He was so serious about safety that he introduced a bill that made it illegal to put a for sale sign on your car while it's parked. Anyways, the ambitious senator was actually ambitious in other ways. On March 14th, 2014, big news would come out of Chinatown. Leland Yee was arrested for racketeering, bribery, and all kinds of other charges. The FBI had been wiretapping him for a few months and eventually put his morals to the test. They had undercover agents pretend to be traffickers in the Middle East, and they would contact him and offer him $42,000. Leland Yee would agree on the deal, and that's all they needed. So much for caring about safety. None of that mattered anymore once the money was put in his pockets. So the FBI decided to raid his office and go through all his records. And that's where they found some important information. Leland Yee was making deals and working alongside Raymond Chow. So on March 26, Raymond Chow was arrested on 162 counts of fraud and racketeering.
Damn.
So after 30 years of being under the radar, the dark side of Chinatown had finally come to the light. Raymond Chow was now doing life. Leland Yee served 5 years and was released in July of 2020.
Damn, so folks says them Chinese motherfuckers be playing that role like a motherfucker. You don't even know. They has be doing shit behind the scenes, really putting in work.
Today, these organizations are more low-key than ever, but trust me, they are around and they are making money. But on a positive...
Yeah, they most definitely out here for sure. They just low-key with it, smooth, you feel me? But shout out Swamp Stories, and we finna go to the next video now.